I want to start this episode with the intention to challenge the way you've been describing your life. You might tell yourself you are waiting, and that waiting might mean that you are waiting for the children to become more independent, waiting until work settles down, waiting until your relationship feels easier, waiting until there's finally time for you. But I don't think you are waiting, because waiting sounds passive. And when I look at the women I work with, passive isn't the word I would use. You are organizing, planning, remembering, anticipating, adjusting, caring. Your days are full of movement. Your life is full of responsibility. So perhaps the better question isn't, what am I waiting? Perhaps a better question to ask is, what am I protecting by making sure I never need anything from anyone? Welcome to Laughed Without Losing Yourself, the podcast where we explore the behaviors that quietly lead high-achieving women away from themselves and the practices that help them return. Each week, we explore the behaviors that quietly shape the relationship you have with yourself, so you can stop self-abandonment and begin returning to who you truly are. And as I said in this introduction, today we are talking about a pattern that many women mistake for patience. They tell themselves they are waiting for the right time, the right circumstances, or the right opportunity. But what if you quietly build a life around never needing anything from anyone? Today we are exploring the difference and why recognizing it might be the first step in returning to yourself. I want you to recognize the behavior because it's important. Over the last 10, 11 years, working with women, I've noticed something. Women rarely tell me, I don't deserve more. Instead, what they do is to show me something else. They solve problems before anyone notices them. Think about it. Do you do it too? Do you solve problems before even the person that has them notices them? They decline help before it's offered. They make decisions without asking for support. They rearrange their own plans without telling anyone they had plans to begin with. When someone asks what they want, the answer with what everyone else needs. Those are behaviors disguised as personality traits. And behaviors always tell us a story. And for years, this story was called people-pleasing. But I don't think it's quite right, because people-pleasing is driven by fear. If I say no, they will be upset. If I ask, they will judge me. If I disappoint them, they will leave. But this pattern, the pattern we are exploring today, feels different. It's more organized than that. It's more organized than a pure fear that we won't be enough for someone. It's more efficient, more competent. It's the behavior of a woman who has decided that it's easier if I don't need anything. And this decision many times doesn't happen consciously. It happens in our unconscious. I once asked a woman this question, what do you want? And immediately she came back with whatever works for everyone. So I asked again, no. What do you want? And it took her a while to answer. because she knew exactly what she wanted. But sadly, nobody had asked her that question in a very long time. And I bet that question sounds familiar if we want to be honest with ourselves. I bet that question isn't a foreign to you. I was once that woman, declaring others' wants as my own. But I am not the only one. I've seen this in leaders, in mothers, in business owners, in women who appear incredibly capable. During the research I did for my latest book, Close Out, I interviewed 33 women. A big percentage of those women had this trait. Somewhere along the way, we stopped expressing wants. And that happened because at some point, it didn't feel safe enough to express them. We labeled them as risky. So what we did to survive, we developed new behaviors. And instead of asking, we arranged. Instead of receiving, we prepared. Instead of depending, we carried. And all these behaviors probably protected us once. But as always, protection has a cost. And eventually, the behavior that once kept you safe begins keeping you distant from yourself. This is where I think our conversations in this episode changes. Returning to yourself isn't becoming someone who suddenly needs everyone. I want you to understand this. When I start expressing what I want, what I need, I'm not becoming needy. What I become is someone who no longer abandons herself to avoid needing anyone. And that's a very different thing. Returning might look like saying, I would really like that, without immediately explaining why it's practical. Returning might look like accepting help without apologizing for it. Returning might look like allowing someone else to carry something you usually carry alone. Pay attention to these behaviors because they might sound small. But from small behaviors, it's where identity starts to change. And it's happening with small, tiny changes at first. And that's why I would like to leave you with a practice this week, which is simple, which is small, but creates a huge change. Notice every time you turn a want into a justification. And it may sound like this. I would love a quiet weekend because I've been working so hard. Justification. Instead, simply say, I would love a quiet weekend. Full stop. No explanation, no justification. And notice what happens next. Notice how quickly you feel the urge to explain, to soften, to earn it. And don't judge yourself. Just observe this behavior. And I want you to remember every return, every tiny change begins with observation. So perhaps the question I want us to explore today isn't, why am I still waiting? Perhaps it's, where have I become so committed to never needing anything that I've stopped allowing myself to be fully alive? That's a very different question. And I think it's a more honest one. This episode is short compared to any other episode, but it's so important for you to start observing these behaviors. So I would like to thank you for spending this time with me. And if this conversation helped you recognize a behavior you've never quite had words for, I would encourage you to stay with it this week. Don't try to fix it or to force change. Just sit with it. Observe the behavior. The reason I'm asking you to do this is that behavior changes long before identity does. So the change will come only when we identify and observe the behavior. If today's episode helped you recognize yourself for the first time, you will find my burnout assessment linked in the show notes. And if you're already seeing these patterns and you are ready to work through them with support, you can also book a reset session using the link below. Until next week, I want you to remember this. You don't return to yourself by becoming someone new. You return by slowly stopping the behaviors that taught you to leave yourself behind. Much love.